protein with Tyler. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Good to have you
Been a long
back.
Summer. Short
Yes.
summer, actually.
I know it goes by like that, right? And then we're into fall, and the next thing we know, it's going to be, you know, the holiday season with the white stuff. Let's not talk about that. We do want to talk about protein, though, and specifically for vegan and vegetarian diets, because, and I've heard and read a lot on this, that often, you know, people who go vegan or vegetarian aren't always the healthiest because they're not getting the right balance of food into their diet, especially protein.
Yeah, it's like any diet. Like, you know, there's meat eaters that maybe their protein intake is really good, but maybe that's all they eat, and so they have their protein intake is great, but they're lacking in everything else. And it's the same with vegan diets. You can't just say I'm vegan and then suddenly be healthier, because there's a bit more fine tuning, especially in protein, that goes into it. And the reason for that is because when you're dealing with animal proteins, like animal foods in general, you don't have to give it any thought. It's like if you're, with the exception of honey, if you're eating an animal protein, there's gonna be protein in it. It's not like there's a protein-less animal food kind of a thing. So with vegetarian and vegan foods, there's a lot of protein sources. You just have to be a bit more mindful about how you're choosing them and what the balance is going to be. So there, you know, one of the examples, I had a conversation years ago with a really hardcore vegan that we used to work with. I won't mention books or names, but if you're listening, Kathy, this one's for you. She was reading this book, and it was talking about how broccoli has more protein than steak. And I thought, that's like a really bizarre statistic.
Yes.
But there's a lot of ways that you can spin statistics to sort of show, you know, the one thing is superior than the other. And in this case, you're talking about broccoli per calorie versus a fatty steak per calorie. And in those cases, yes, it does. But I want to illustrate like the difference between vegetarian protein or vegan protein and animal-based protein. With this is an example I give all the time. So you got a stalk of broccoli, you know, typical stalk of broccoli. And it has a lot less calories, obviously, than this can of tuna. But it has about 4 grams in that entire stalk. So
of protein.
Yeah, so guess roughly how many of these stalks would have to sort of, you'd have to eat.
You'd have to eat,
including the
10?
stem. It was close, about seven and a half.
Oh, I did all right.
So it becomes
That's a lot of broccoli.
It becomes an issue of impracticality. Now, granted, if you were to eat 7.5 stalks of broccoli, I would say you're going to be a lot better off than eating a can of tuna. You're going to get roughly the same amount of protein, but all those antioxidants, all those other great things. The problem is impracticality. Who is going to eat 7.5 stalks, you know, in one?
Yeah, and so if you took a look at that, it'd be like eating that 3 times a day, because we should be giving our bodies protein throughout the day. It is proven we need protein in order to function at you know, the best abilities for our bodies. So that's going to be tough to do. That's a lot of broccoli.
It's going to be tricky, and there's a lot of different estimates as to how much protein a person should be having. But as a general rule of thumb, if you know your weight in kilograms, get about 1 gram per every kilogram of body weight. It's a bit more if you're more active, if you're recovering from surgery. But you have to kind of keep that in mind to what you're doing. Now, having said that, so broccoli is a very poor example. It was one that I wouldn't have used if I was writing a book about where you find your protein in a vegetarian-vegan diet. There are better options out there, such as like, you know, beans and legumes are almost, depending on the bean, almost a match for meat and dairy and eggs as well. So there's other things, other advantages when it comes to processed vegetarian or vegan foods. So in the case of like soybeans are good, like non-GMO soybeans are a very good source of protein. They get even better when it's turned into tofu or tempeh, or if you turn it into soy milk, because you're stripping away a lot of the fiber and a lot of the things that normally make accessing that protein difficult by your digestive system.
Okay, so then it's better to do that.
Yeah, and you're going to get more concentration as well. Sometimes sprouting, if you're sprouting beans or seeds and that type of thing, you'll also get more protein content. A lot of people go to vegetarian protein powders these days.
Yeah, that's what we've got in front here, right?
They're getting more popular because the 2 classic protein powders that you'll normally find are either whey protein, which is from dairy,
right?
And dairy is fast becoming one of those things that people are trying to avoid because of, you know, some sort of intolerance or, you know, some immune problem. And egg protein is just hard to find. So a lot of people, even hardcore meat eaters, are going towards vegetarian proteins because they're very good quality nowadays. They have a lot of protein per gram. Like this one, for instance, as a quick example, this is all from sprouted grains. So people are used to thinking of grains as like carbohydrates.
Right.
You got your quinoa, your amaranth, your buckwheats. It's all grains. There's actually 1 gram of carbohydrates in a whole serving of this, when there's 22 grams of protein. So you're getting the equivalent of about 4 eggs worth of protein with almost no carbohydrates, no cholesterol,
Probably a good thing to do is take a look to see the amount of grams of protein you're getting with each serving of any of your vegan or vegetarian protein powders.
Yeah, and whether you need a protein powder at all, what I usually tell a lot of my clients is, with the rule of thumb I just mentioned, like 1 gram of protein per kilogram. And there's other things that I sort of use when I have my clients that I sort of fine tune. But if figure out what that is, spend a few days sort of measuring how much protein you're intaking. Read lots of labels. If you have a can of tuna, 30 grams per can, read lots of labels, see how close you are to getting to where you should be. And then if you calculate a difference, consider then, I need to eat more of this, or a protein powder is a convenient, easy, quick 30-second solution to the problem.
I know you brought in a chart so that we can show, and this sort of takes a look at your amounts of protein and...
Yeah, so it doesn't talk too much about protein quality, but strictly protein quantity. So you can see that beans and legumes, for everything here on this chart is standardized mostly to a cup. You can see with beans and legumes, you've got pretty much everything ranged from 15 to 31 grams of protein. So you're looking, that's about 4 to 7 stalks of broccoli that you can fit into each of those.
Yeah.
Nuts and seeds would basically just be next on the list, with pumpkin seeds and lentils being really good options. The grains can be good as well. The problem with a lot of grains is, unless you're spreading them and putting them in a protein powder form, is there's a lot of carbohydrates usually paired up with it as well. So they're good grains choices to use if you're going to eat grains, because they are naturally high in protein. And you can see the wheat gluten, which is 21 grams basically per cup, is one of those things where you for sure need to know you're not having a sensitivity to gluten before you even approach that one.
Sure.
And then with vegetables, meaning most of your like root vegetables, your leafy greens, stuff like that, you're really getting very low amounts, so about 4 to 5 grams per cup.
Yeah, and I mean, I think what you said off the start there too, just talking about there's some people who just eat meat and not a lot of this, and there's then those that just eat mostly the greens and not getting enough protein. So finding that balance is a good thing to do. So thanks.
Yeah, if someone stating that they're vegan or vegetarian only tells me what they don't eat. It doesn't tell me what they do eat with what's left of their diet.
Yeah, well, it's great to look at it. It's interesting that a lot of meat eaters are also looking at the importance and the nutrients that you can get out of vegan and vegetarian protein. So thanks, Tyler.
Thank you.
Always good
Thanks for having
info.
me.
So Full Circle is where you can go for more information. You can check them out still at 131 Upper Centennial Parkway in Stony Creek, but they will be moving soon. FullCircleHealthcare.ca. If you go there, the details of their move and everything will be on there, but they'll still be providing the same great services. You can still get a lot of your supplements through them as well, just in a different way. They won't have the storefront. Tyler, thanks so much. Always good to see you.